Yeah, so I appreciate you. Thank you. With the Soros scholarship, so can you explain that? Because it's a lot of people are misconstruing it and they're saying it was George Soros, but it was actually Paul and Daisy Soros. It was his brother. They call him the invisible Soros in some news things. And you got a scholarship. It was in 2011 to go to law school.
2010.
From
when I applied for it.
Paul and Daisy Soros. So what have you been telling people about that? Because obviously a lot of people are skeptical.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I'd say my advice to everybody is be skeptical of anybody who's telling you anything when they're running for office. Here's the facts. I was 24 or 25 years old in the fall of 2010 when I applied on a Fridays. When I heard about it, the deadline was Monday. There was classmates who said, oh, there's this scholarship. First time I heard about it, but you know, $50,000, I'm not going to turn that down. In my early 20s, filled out a scholarship application over the weekend. The funder of it, the main funder, not George Soros, but Paul Soros. It's his brother, who made his money independently, who, by the way, now is long dead, who funds this scholarship. It's a generic scholarship. Hundreds of kids.
Him dead doesn't matter, though. It would be saying, like, I took he's dead now. It's like,
you asked me to let you finish, so I'm gonna ask for the same courtesy. If you asked me to explain it. The guy is long dead because I think the big question that comes up is who's the boogeyman pulling the strings, and so the answer is I think it's relevant to know this guy's long dead, made his money independently, has totally different background from George Soros as well, but nonetheless, I wasn't even paying attention to this. I couldn't have told you what George Soros's ties were, let alone George Soros. Why I wasn't paying attention to him. And a different guy named Paul Soros is funding the scholarship. At the age of 24, I would have had to be an idiot, a fool, to turn down a merit scholarship that you win to help pay for graduate school, as hundreds of other kids win generically. And I'm honest about that. That's exactly what I did. Were there strings attached? No, there weren't. Now, the reason I also bring these other facts up, because I think it's just important for skeptical people to stay skeptical, is that I have no tie to George Soros other than criticizing him. There are other candidates who has tied to George Soros. I mean, George Soros's investment partners have hosted fundraisers for other prominent Republican candidates in this race as recently as June. Ron DeSantis. George Soros has praised other candidates in this race. That's not me. Has praised other candidates he wants to see as the Republican nominee. That's not me. There's candidates in this race who have received multi-million-dollar, $100+ million loans from George Soros. That's not me. I'm not saying that to disqualify the other candidates, but I am saying that when people get a lot of information, yes, be skeptical, but be skeptical where it's coming from too. And for my part, yes, I'm honest about it. I took a 24-year-old scholarship in the year 2010 from a guy who's related to George Soros. You know, if that's going to stop somebody to say they shouldn't vote for me, that's their decision. But I think that anybody who would have turned that down should not be allowed anywhere near the White House doing trade deals on behalf of this country either.
You say you're being honest. I heard 2 interviews. I quoted you. You said, when I didn't have the money and back when I didn't have a lot of money to do it. Those are direct quotes from you. Fox Digital News did a report, and they said that the year that you took the award from Soros, you made $2.2 million that year and over $1 million for 3 years total. So
can I address the facts?
Do you really need the money, or are you just saying that?
Well, let me address a couple of facts right there. So how do people know that? One thing they should know is it's because I did something that no presidential candidate has ever done. And I was aware of what I've said and when I've released it. We published 20 years of tax returns. Nobody who's running for U.S. president has published 20 years of tax returns, certainly not somebody who's been successful in business. And the reason is I believe transparency is important. I would love for every other political candidate to do that. None of them do it because they want to hide. So I voluntarily, in the early weeks of this campaign, put that on the internet for everybody to see. Anybody who on your show who's visiting, media or anybody else, can see it for themselves. Now, if you want to interpret that correctly, so let me just tell you, if you want to get to the facts, I mean, I don't think these facts matter at all, but if you care about them, I'll go into them. Fall of 2010, I applied. My first major payday at the hedge fund I was working for was the year-end bonus I got in 2010, and then my real big payday then came in 2011. So at the time I applied for that scholarship, yeah, I didn't have. My parents had not earned big-time money. So the fall of 2010 when I applied, absolutely. Now, at the year-end 2010, December 31st, for people in the finance industry, that's when you know that was a biggest paycheck by an order of magnitude I've ever gotten. And then 2011, it just kept going up from there. But the other thing I'll say is, to anybody else who's young and receiving advice, even if you have $1 million in the bank account and somebody gives you a $50,000 scholarship, yeah, take it. Don't take it if there's strings attached and they say you can't say certain things. Turn down that money. But yeah, if you have $1 million and somebody gives you 50 grand more and you earned it, go for it and take it too. Turns out, though, that that wasn't even the position I was in. It was the following year, and you want to match up the tax returns, do the facts right. The reason I've done it is so that everybody else has full transparency. And so I just think it's important that people understand that.
Well, just real quick before we move on, the Fox Digital News report says you made over $1 million 3 years prior, and then that year you made 2.2. So, I mean, if you say, if you get free money, take it. That's one thing. If you say I don't have the money, that's fair.
Well, to tell you the truth, compared to where I am right now, put yourself in it wasn't a need-based scholarship. It's a merit scholarship. But I'd say that, you know what? I am wealthy now. Okay. I was not wealthy by the standards that I used to judge that back then. And yes, $50,000 meant a heck of a lot to me when I was 24 years old. All right. You can look up my tax returns post-tax, the way you accumulate it. Had I earned a few $100,000? Yes. Leading up to that, did it become millions later and hundreds of millions later? Yes, it did. At the age of 24, it wasn't. $50,000 meant a lot to me, and I was smart to take it, and I would advise any other young person to do the same thing.
Cool. Yeah. Before we move on, too, I just saw this. This was on the Paul and Daisy Soros website. They were bragging about you pursuing the potential of abandoned pharmaceuticals. That guy right there, they said that he had contacted you because he saw you on the Soros website. And this is, I believe, Axovant, which is the 4 times failed drug that you bought from GlaxoSmithKline. And then that large IPO that they're bragging about, it actually caved, right? It went from like $200 stock to like a 35.
Yeah, you want me to just tell you about that whole experience? Because I can lay it out.
I'm down to talk about it later, since I'm kind of in a rush if you guys aren't going to give me as much time, because I have a lot of stuff to get through. So do you want to move on, and then we can talk about Axovant later?
Yeah, wherever you want to go, man. And my job is, I love the skepticism. All I say is to everybody, be skeptical of what anybody's feeding you. Get to the actual facts.